He said, you're the reason he built this fucking facility, right? And I run into a lot of different people like that who are like, man, the reason that I set out on this path of health is because of Rogan, right? Or a lot of people, like, you're having like this kind of massive influence on the lives of a lot of people. And I'm really curious about why you think that's happening and how you deal with the weird responsibility of being a little bit more than an entertainer and a little bit more than a comedian in a lot of people's lives.
Dude, that's heavy.
Yeah, man.
Woo! First of all, definitely never think about it that way, because that'll paralyze you in fear and you'll never get anything done.
Right. But it's true.
I do what I try to do is I try to have podcasts with interesting people and have cool conversations with them, and I try to openly think and discuss life. And by life, I mean every aspect of it. What's going on in my head and what I've found that's helped me. And one of the cooler things about having a podcast is that you get to sit down with all sorts of super intelligent experts and examine the way they think and be stunned a lot of the time by the intellect of the people you're talking to. Like Dr. Rhonda Patrick is a perfect example. Every time I have her on the podcast, I'm like, God damn, she's so fucking smart and I'm so fucking dumb. Those are the two things I always think after every podcast with her.
Yeah.
Sam Harris is a similar one, you know, and there's been quite a few people that I've had on that are really fascinating, interesting people. Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock, and you know, the list can go on and on and on. So many really, really smart fucking people. And I'm always about trying to expand my view of things, trying to expand my thoughts, and trying to make my whole thing work as good as it can, physically, mentally. I want to be in that groovy, happy spot as much as possible. And along the way, I've learned some shit because I've made a lot of mistakes, but I'm also experienced enough in fuck ups and then rebounding from fuck ups and like figuring out how to stay motivated and keep your brain in check, that when people talk about things like self-improvement type shit, it gets into such a douchey area, man. It's so possible to be douchey there. You got to be really careful.
Yes.
Because nobody wants to hear it. Yeah. One more set. Go out and fucking kick today's ass. You know, I'm a beast. I'm going beast mode, bro.
Yeah.
Like, it's so boring. Right? When someone's giving you advice, what you need to do is get off your ass and realize today is a gift and tomorrow is uncertain. Hashtag go for it.
You know, sure. I collect those because they're so cheesy. I have like 80 of them in my phone.
Chris D'Elia has a hilarious bit about those guys, by the way.
Oh, he did?
Hilarious. Really funny bit about those kind of guys. But the point being is that, you know, I am really lucky that I'm in this weird position that I get to talk to all these cool people and put it out there. And it's helped me, man. That podcast has helped me tremendously.
But
it's
man,
helped me shape my view of the world.
You have, as much as you don't want to be an inspirational teacher, you have, unfortunately, maybe if you consider it to be a cheesy thing, you have stepped into that role for a lot of people. It's not, I mean, it's funny. You're clearly brilliantly funny, but it's something more than that, man. And maybe you just ignore it. Maybe that's the secret. You just ignore it.
Just live your life, man. It's not important where all this stuff is coming from. Whether it's coming from me or it's coming from you or it's coming from Joey or it's coming from whoever else is out there that is listening to this, is going to start their own podcast. We are all discussing the bizarre nature of this fucking strange thing we call life. And we're doing it with humor, and we're doing it by analyzing things that are confusing to us, and we're doing it by talking about our own mortality and talking about our insecurities and how the desperate times of the past and exploring all the weird traps that our minds have led us into. And I think a lot of times people see someone like, whether it's like Jamie Foxx is one of those dudes that he's so successful, he does so many different things, you know, he can sing, he acts. I always assume that he's just one of those guys that just never fucked anything up. You know, like there's like a guy like that.
Yes.
You know, the guy's just so smooth. He just coasted through that bitch.
Yeah.
And nothing.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a few guys like that, but the reality is, for almost all of us, every single person that's listening, you and me, we're just an experiment. We're all trying to navigate this thing. Our parents were left with the shittiest fucking guidebook of how to live your life. They were left with a guidebook that was constructed by savages.
Right.
Like my grandparents and their grandparents, savages.
Right.
Savages. They're living in a time with no photographs. They were living in a time where you had no video. You had no idea what was going on in America.
Right.
And you still got in a boat and you still came over here.
Right.
They were savages. They were crazy people. And they lived in a very primal way. We are sort of like bubbling out of that right now, all together. Just a few generations later, we're bubbling out of that in some very strange and sort of fluid way where we're trying to find our own definition in this thing.
Right.
But it's unprecedented. It's unprecedented that in such a short amount of time, just a couple of generations, people have gone from the kind of people our great-grandparents were to us. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
Very, very bizarre. And the staggering potential for the future that's going to make this gap, the gap between 1859 and 2016, the gap between 2016 and 2026 is probably going to be wider.
Yeah.
Probably way wider. And after today, man, after putting your gear on, this is the future. This is going to be really weird, man. It's going to be really, 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 really strange.
Well, Joe, thank you so much, man.